live.
Hi.
Hello, and greetings from Sanford, where we've been for a while.
Yeah, since late March. We're going on like 6 weeks here, I think.
Yes. Oh, and I got our names on the right side of the thing.
Oh.
Say hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Cherie, and this is Kiki.
Yes, Kiki, we just woke her up from a nap and said she needed some camera time. So, hello.
Okay, I'll let you go
Let
back
the
to your
cat
nap.
go. Okay. Don't disconnect the internet while we're streaming. She's been
So on Friday, we put out a brand new video and blog post about comparing the cost of our bus life to our boat life. After now we have 3 years of numbers to share on the boat. So we kind of scheduled this Q&A to be right after that in case people had questions, but we'll be open to questions on anything about nomadic life except for mobile internet.
Yeah, we're just here. It's a Sunday hanging out time, and we also have something to celebrate because today is Cherie's official 13th Nomadiversary, and that also then marks the beginning of Technomadia when we combined our stories.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the other thing to celebrate, even more important than that, is Happy Mother's Day.
That's what started Cherie, a mother.
That's what Father started you.
It started
too.
Me, a mother.
And you.
So, yes, none of us would be here without mothers. So happy Mother's Day to all mothers who happen to be tuning in.
And to ours, who I think are on here. And we are so blessed to have amazing moms and dads. And they've been such a huge part of our journey and encouraging us to do this lifestyle. So it's just awesome.
So we're going to actually focus more than usual on the Q&A side of things. Particularly, we're going to call out questions about costs and expenses or about nomadiversaries and Cherie. So we don't really have a set agenda. We're not going to cook anything on camera.
Not this week.
Not this week.
But if you haven't caught the blog post and video, I do have links in the description. You can go catch up on that. We're not going to try to recap it here, but we did a lot of details about fuel costs, dockage versus RV park campground fees, insurance, and maintenance. That's the big topic. And just spoiler alert, the boat costs more than the RV. That's no surprise.
But you might be surprised about how some of the ratios are and how not some of the things people think are the big expenses, like, oh my God, the fuel is really actually not the big expenses and is not so different between boat and RV based on style of travel.
Yep, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And actually, our fuel costs on the boat are lower than on the bus. And that's a lot to do with our travel style. But also, the gallons per hour is about half on the boat versus the bus. And that even surprised me after all these years when I actually ran the numbers. Because in the video, we actually said they were the same. Then I went and actually ran the numbers. I was like, oh, wow.
Double checked. I was like, yeah. Okay, so when I saw there was actually, here's a mom.
Hi, Mom. Hope you enjoyed your seafood dinner.
And let's see what else we got here. We got a lot of people chiming in from all sorts of cool places. And from Philadelphia, Montreal, middle of the mitten.
That's that Michigan thing, yeah.
Yeah, Michigan. Middleburg. Joe, the computer guy, he's always here.
Thanks, Joe, for being here.
And all sorts of cool people. Yes. Mercedes, Texas, Idaho.
Sabina and Eckert are here, who we saw.
Sanford.
we socially distanced from last night.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The Willow Tree is back in action, as well as many other restaurants, because Florida opened back up to 25% capacity on restaurants this week. So Eckert, who's the performer over at the Willow Tree, is back on and performing. So
the sweet sound of yodeling is drifting over downtown Sanford yet again.
So we went and waved to him through a window. I'm not brave enough to go inside of restaurants right now, but we did go over and showed our support as best we can. Yeah. So anyway, 13 years ago. So if you haven't really read our full story before, Chris set off solo in 2006 on April 1st. We met online just a few months later, finally met in person.
Met in person that October. And by December, I was in Florida. Mm-hmm. And then we've been basically inseparable ever since. And by, month is it, May? Yeah, we're in May now. You were ready to sell your house was ready, your stuff was packed, and you were ready to hit the road and leave your house with a for sale sign planted out front.
Well, the for sale had been there for a year, but that was
Yes.
the start of the housing crisis,
Yep.
and it was a little bit forward in Florida because of the insurance. Insurance were dropping people because of the active hurricane season, and the Space Center had just announced, NASA just announced that the shuttle program was winding down. So we were about a year or two ahead of the Great Recession. So we had a really hard time selling my house, but we finally left.
It actually took a year to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep. So we set off May 10th, 2007 together, and that's when we combined our two individual personal blogs at the time where we met, and combined, and that's where Technomadia was born. So it's not only my 13th Nomadiversary,
it's the birthday of Technomadia.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's basically, you could dig deep enough, you could find probably a post from that day, I imagine.
I don't know. I know we were so crazy busy because we basically, it was around February or March where we decided that we had done several trial runs in the little Tab camper. And we had decided, yes, we're going to do this. We're going to try it for an extended trip. And I had to get my business ready to go on the road. I was a software developer at the time, working from home. I had to get everything in my house ready to go, so I could just leave the keys with a realtor and show it. So I, pared down. I pretty much got rid of like 80% of my possessions at that time. And that was 6 weeks. I did that in 6 weeks, and it was crazy. And you were converting the Tab to get ready for us to go together?
Yeah, I was upgrading the electrical system, putting in more power and batteries and stuff, because she was very power hungry.
My laptop was power hungry. I got a new laptop, so it was less of a demand.
Right. And yeah, just getting the Tab as outfitted as best as possible for 2 people living in it, which is
he didn't add a bathroom.
No bathroom, no air conditioner, none of that stuff. But yeah, that was like, get that ready, let's go. And we were setting out with the intention of basically do the full summer, do a full season on the road together and see how it went. Clearly it went really well. Do you have any memories from that first day?
I remember I woke up on the morning of May 10th. I was ready to go. I had everything done, all of the lists that we had made on Google Docs, everything on my to-do list was done. This one was not ready to go until like 5 p.m. in the evening.
And we left earlier than that.
No, well, by the time, because we stopped by to say goodbye to my parents who lived in town. And then our first stop that night was down in Miami. I was in Melbourne, Florida. So we had like 3 hours drive, and we hit Miami in rush hour traffic.
Because we had lunch with your parents.
Was it lunch?
Yeah.
Yes, we had. Yes, it was lunch.
So we met them for lunch. We weren't that horribly late leaving.
But we hit Miami rush hour traffic. That's my first day on the road. It was not fun. It was chaotic. No. And that's where I learned that we had very different approaches in how we get ready to go, and that you put things off to the end, and I just nicely space things out. And
there was a little challenging that first day, and definitely diving in to traffic and chaos. And it's kind of crazy that we would like go from Melbourne to Miami in one day. Now we would on
the boat, that'd be a 3-month adventure.
Yes. And we just like to go so much slower, and just we were like in crazy hopping around mode at the time.
But how far we've come. We had that little 16-foot teardrop trailer. Then we had an Oliver travel trailer that was 17 feet long and had a bathroom. Then we had the bus conversion. We lived on the Virgin Islands for 5 months. We lived in the bus full time since 2011 and added the boat in 2017. So it's been an amazing venture. And we also now have the van conversion too.
Okay, so you want to start with some of the questions as we work down here? We got one from Jamie here. How many techno items do you transfer from mobile platform to the other? How much redundancy?
So we have tried to minimize as much as we can, where each one is independent. But technology advances so fast that even if we're 4 or 5 months on one vessel, by the time we get to the next, something needs to be upgraded. Yeah. So we've gotten it pretty down. We're, the computers, of course, stay with us and move. And
we've actually even got it set up so that our big 27-inch 5K monitor has a place on each vehicle, and so it's always with us. So we've even got a spot in the van on a swing arm and stuff like that. So we got the big, video production monitor travels with us. But a lot of the basics are yeah, we I don't know. We just have like one tech bag each, with
Right.
our laptops and a few other
Our
things that we just
laptops,
carry
our
with
phones, our watches.
us.
The things that we do have to transport is the mobile internet gear that we're testing all the time for the
Yes.
Mobile Internet Resource Center. So we usually have a collection of antennas and routers and boosters that we have to somehow fit into a bin small enough to go to all vessels, because we're doing testing as we go when we travel.
We got a Jamie and Michelle want to know the nautical miles per gallon,
I'm assuming that's on the boat.
or the
And
bus. Maybe the bus.
probably maybe the bus. So the mileage that we get on the vessels, we get 16 to 17 miles per gallon in the van. That one's pretty great.
I would prefer 50.
That would be better.
Hybrid would be nice.
But that's not what we get.
Yes.
The bus gets about 7 to 8, and then the boat gets 1.8, not 1 to 8, 1.8 nautical miles per gallon. And
but if you put gallons per hour, it changes everything.
Right. So the gallons per hour, the boat is getting about 3.5. The bus is getting about 7. And I haven't calculated I think it was about 4 when I calculated the van. So we don't really base our travels on miles. We base it on how many hours we're willing to travel somewhere before our next stop.
Right.
And so that's actually working out so that the boat is
the
more
winner.
is the most economical for us to run.
Time, right. There's a question: is do we pay to park the van while we're at dock?
We have not yet.
Yeah, part of the reason we picked the van we did is we sought out a van that would fit in a regular parking spot. So it's just our car, and so we wanted something that we could park at marinas just like we would park a car. And so far, every marina that we've had overlapping with the van has free car parking. Mm-hmm. That you can have. So, and
there's been some marinas that we have like almost gone to, and they, when you're factoring in what it's going to cost to stay somewhere, especially for a month, some of them have had like, oh, you pay $50 for a car permit to park a car there. Yeah. So there might be an option in the future where we do pay to park at a marina, or might have to pay city parking at a city park or something like that. Yeah. But so far, it's we've not had any storage or parking expenses on the van. But that's not to say we might not in the future.
There's a question. Carrie's wondering if we ever worry about trying to get to a hospital for emergencies.
So where we are here in Sanford, we are literally...
We can walk to the hospital. Actually, that's where we turn around when we do our daily
we
walk.
can actually walk to the hospital here. So yes, we feel we're close here. When we're on the boat so far, we have been really, because we've only really done Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. We've mostly been, especially when stopped, we've been mostly in very populated areas where healthcare is very close by.
I mean, we've been anchored out in some places fairly remote where, it would take time to get to help. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's just this nature of traveling.
Right, exactly. And, we're still of an age where that's not something is a top criteria when we are picking some place to go. Obviously, as we continue to become more wise, that will become something that we calculate into our travels much more. But, honestly, when we were picking where we wanted to be for the pandemic, Sanford was the top of the list because we knew there was a hospital on our health plan right here.
Yeah, among many, many, many other reasons we picked Sanford to say, okay, hospital is here. It's safe from hurricane season. Mm-hmm.
And when we were doing the cruise down the coast, because when we left Savannah in early March, we weren't sure where we were going to end up. And, the idea to come to Sanford and shelter in place here, just kind of narrowed in. But we actually had we went over what would happen if one of us started, because what if we had gotten exposed in the process in Savannah? Mm-hmm. If one of us started to show symptoms, and, we were studying the disease progression and what we would do and how we would get
hightail it to some place.
To be close to healthcare if we needed it. So.
And we got a lot of people checking in from everywhere from New York, Houston, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Colorado, one other Houston, lots of people here. Okay, here's Clayton has a question. I have 5 more years of a stationary job until retirement. I want to go nomadic on a boat. How can I convince my wife to give up the brick and mortar home? How did I convince you?
I think I convinced you. So that's the thing, is it really, really helps to have you both on the same page. So does she share a dream of adventure? Well, then go explore together. Go look at boat shows. Go to boat shows together. Meet with don't meet with boaters right now. But
I think it was actually the magical lesbian couple on our first date who told you that you should move in with me, right?
I was already. I have had wanderlust. So that's the thing. That's what brought us
Right.
together. Is we both had
We
a
connected
thirst.
over that.
We were already both traveling in our lifestyles, so I wouldn't know how to go and convince a reluctant partner. And if they are reluctant and they come along, they're not going to be happy. But on the
But
flip
on the other
side,
hand, they might be willing to try it. So
on the other side, we have run into couples where one was a reluctant partner, and now they're the ones wanting to stay out on the road, while the other one's like, "Stop, I'm done."
yeah, we have actually seen that flip happen a surprising number of times. So, just go into it with a lot of communication, talk to each other, and decide some experiments. I mean, even when we did set out, that first year was we considered a trial phase, both for our relationship and our style of travel. We came out of it deciding we wanted to stay together and that we didn't want to keep living in the tab. So
Definitely, we wanted a bathroom.
Yes, we wanted a bathroom. We wanted air conditioning.
We wanted
a
office
refrigerator.
space. We
And
wanted
we wanted
office
a place
space.
to put our laptops without having to work in bed all the time.
Yep.
So this is kind of a big question. Jan wants to know, how were the costs to keep each of our vehicles livable to our liking?
That's a tough one. Number one, I don't really track numbers that way.
And also, we like everything. Like we bought our bus for $8,000 and we moved into it the next day.
And it was likable.
It was livable. It was, everything worked on it. One of the air conditioners sounded like a screaming banshee, but at least it put out cold air, and everything was livable. Well, the toilet wasn't. But I fixed that pretty quick.
So we bought all of our vessels already livable.
Right.
It's then we made them thrivable over the years, and those costs were spread out over many years. Like the bus we got in 2011, and I would say it was about the end of 2015 where we kind of completed most of our wish list items. So those costs were spread out over 4 years. And, there were some projects we did on our own, some that we hired out, some that we paid far more for than we probably should have. But, I don't really, I think all in, I don't even want to quote numbers because I haven't run them and I don't want to give people misinformation.
And also, because part of the fun of it for us is taking on these projects. And we don't like to try and bunch them all up at front because, like, if we were to, like, buy something and immediately retrofit it, by the time we're done retrofitting, we would have learned enough about the vehicle that we would do it completely different if we were starting it. So spreading projects out over time and just continually, never letting them end, really. We're always doing upgrades. We're always retrofitting something somewhere, and making our houses more and more us and more unique.
Yep, and same with the boat. We bought it. It was completely livable when we got it. And we've just been making it more us over the last 3 years. And again, I have not run the numbers on the total bills because we spend money when we have it.
That's true.
We're continuing to work instead of retire early so that we can afford to have our vessels and have our adventures as abundant as we wish.
We could tackle fun projects when they have time. Orlando wants to know if we are originally from Florida.
Nope.
Yeah, it's like I went to finished high school in Florida, but I never grew up here.
And I was living in Florida when we met, and that's where I originated my travels from. But I grew up in Texas, and you grew up all over the world.
Yep, and both of our parents are in Florida. All our parents have Florida connections now too.
But via retirement,
right? Exactly.
So it is a home base for us, and it is where we're domiciled, and Florida is what we call home. But it's not where we're originally from.
Okay. See. That was already answered. That one. Okay, we don't answer internet questions on this channel, so let's go over to mobileinternetinfo.com.
Yep. Joe's already doing an awesome job there.
Yes. Okay.
No, lots of mobile internet questions. We do not do mobile internet on this channel.
That's work. This is fun time.
Go over and see us at mobileinternetinfo.com or the Mobile Internet Resource Center YouTube channel. You'll probably find a lot of your questions already answered there.
Yeah. Ooh, we got somebody watching all the way over in Dubai.
Wow.
And this is Johnny says his wife shares the adventure dream just on land, not water. So start on land.
Start on land.
Yeah.
Get used to traveling in small space together and get comfortable with a mobile lifestyle. If that's something that you both can compromise on, then do it.
And also then doing something like the Great Loop is basically RVing on water.
Yeah.
So once you get over the RVing hump, the Great Loop might be the happy medium. And actually, we know quite a few couples that's the one half of the couple wants to sail the world, and the other half is like, let's just do the intercoastal, and they've kind of meet their needs that way.
Yeah, and that actually waylays really nicely into which we've spent more money on an offshore yacht. And number one, spending more money isn't necessarily the key to getting an offshore yacht. We could have gotten an offshore one
cheaper than this even.
Yeah, or for around the same price. So that it's not about money on that one.
Yeah.
Boating is very much you pick your boat style for the type
purpose.
for the purpose that you want to do. And we had chosen the Great Loop. We had originally considered sailing and maybe sailing and cruising around the Caribbean. That was back in 2010.
But even when we were shopping for a sailboat, doing the Great Loop was the top of my cruising bucket list. So I was looking at sailboats, researching sailboats that could do the Great Loop, which really limited our sailboat choices. So yeah, it's all about pick the boat, start with your purpose, and then your budget, and you can spend as much or as little as you want. So
offshore really has never been our vision of what we want to do with cruising. Yes. When we're RVing, we love a water view, and when we're boating, we love a land view. This boat is capable of going to the Bahamas. Now, the Bahamas isn't accepting cruisers right now, or else we might have been over there right now. That was kind of the original plan when we're coming back off the RVing season, was that we were going to take the boat over to the Bahamas while we were still in the region. But no, sailing over massive amounts of water isn't really
not the purpose of this boat, and
not really what I want. Yeah, we watch our friends Nikki and Jason Wynn, who have done some amazing sailing, and I sit there and watch them sail from Ecuador to the
Fiji
to Fiji. Yeah. I'm like, okay, that's awesome, but I don't think that's something I want. That's not in my vision, my dreams.
I could see doing it, but it's like way down on my cruising desires list. I love river cruising and exploring inland and intercoastal and stuff like that, and I'm intrigued by the Bahamas. I'm totally cool with it. I want to check out the Bahamas and do the blue water stuff, but the intercoastal, the rivers, the lakes, going up to Canada, going through all the canals and locks, that's the cruising stuff that excites me. So we picked a boat that would be very appropriate for that.
And we're loving the mix sample where we can go and stay downtown city centers. Because
I love that.
He lived in San Francisco. I lived in Austin, Texas growing up. We love big cities. We love the vibrancy of them and the things that you can get with theater and symphony and
someday they'll all be back.
Culture and dining out. We love that. And we love meeting up with people. And then we love being able to be out in the middle of nature. That we can cruise from this marina 2 miles away, and it's a whole different world.
It's like we're on a jungle cruise.
We were on a jungle cruise. Yes, we did that last week. We just cruised down the river a little bit, and bam, we're in a whole different world, and we're surrounded by nature. Hardly any signs of other people. And I love mixing it up like that.
We have a question here from Johnny. Is our boat a planing hull or a trawler? So basically, does it push through the water or can it rise up on top? And it is a hull. It can go fast, but we tend to prefer to drive it like a trawler.
So it's got dual Cummins 370 engines. It is a semi-planing hull. It is a modified V. It's considered a semi-planing.
Yeah.
So we can get the boat up to 18 miles per hour.
Knots, even faster than miles.
Oh yeah, knots.
19, 20.
We don't do that normally. We'll do it if we're outrunning a storm, if we're going over some sloppy water that we want to get through really quick. But we generally cruise at hull speed instead, which is much more fuel efficient. And then
and much quieter and more relaxing.
Yes, it is. Although when you're getting across a big lake or something like that,
it's nice to go fast.
Because we like the more jungly view. We do. And to properly maintain the engines, which were made to plane, we do need to get them up to temperature every so often to blow out all that gunk out of the turbos, or else we're rebuilding the turbos like we did last year. So we try to get about an hour on plane for every 10 hours of cruising. So we are on plane some.
Now here's a related question to the one we answered before: is do we shuttle specific tools between vehicles, or do we have enough on each one? And since we're shuttling via the van, and the van doesn't have much space, actually tools are something we're trying to duplicate. And I'm still kind of in that little phase of every so often I go to grab a tool from the toolbox, and I'm like, oh, other vehicle, I guess I need to go buy another one of that one. But someday we'll have completely purpose-built tool sets on each side of things. But yeah, that was a challenge, is dealing with tools.
Right, and there are specific tools for the bus
Mm-hmm.
and the boat. You know, the size wrenches that you need to do work on the different engines and things like that. So they each have their own set of tools, and then the van carries. We can only carry so much, and the van is the one least likely that we're going to have to do major maintenance on ourselves, because it is just a standard issue thing, and we could take it to almost any
Mm-hmm.
auto repair place. So we do keep some tools on for little projects along the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're not. The van is only so big, and
It's-
there's only so much we can shuttle in between the
Yes,
two.
I've got a very small toolkit on the van just for some van essentials and
Mhm.
a few projects and stuff. But there's a question from Doc Type. Does domiciling for the boat work the same as for when you're RVing?
Mhm.
And yeah, it's the service that we use as our legal address, St. Brendan's Isle. They got started in the cruising community, and also do a great job providing a home base for RVers.
For both. And you could easily use a service like the Escapees for domiciling for boating. They're not specifically reaching out
Mhm.
to that industry, but they get it, and we're talking with them about maybe eventually reaching out to boaters.
Right.
But it's about the same thing.
Yeah, speaking of escapees, that's an excuse to have some wine, right?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. So tonight's bottle of wine, this is Augusta Vineyards. It's in Fredericksburg, Texas. And this bottle was gifted to us by Kathy and Bud Carr when we stopped by back in February, it was, and stayed with them in Fredericksburg. And they gifted us this bottle of wine. If you know, Kathy and Bud were the CEO and president of the Escapees RV Club in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And now their kids have taken over the club, which we helped found the Escapers with.
So yeah, this is what we got. So we decided to bring out one of our really nice bottles of wine because it's a major milestone, the Cherie's Nomadiversary. And here we go. And do this. And do that. And yeah. Okay. That's cheers. Happy Nomadiversary.
13 years.
Wow.
Oh, it's really good. It's a Tempranillo. We actually went to that vineyard with them and shared a bottle or a tasting with them of that one.
And thank you guys. Wow, that's delicious wine. Okay. Oh, we got an interesting question here from
It's
the
like-
Crazy Krauts.
It's like, will you be doing some camping in the van when it is possible to again? Little Birdie tells me that it might be possible really soon in someone's backyard.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to hanging out with you guys with our RVs parked near each other, keeping appropriately distanced. And here's another person we're hoping to see in person, Eric and Jeanette.
They also full-time RVers who bought a boat in the last year, and we're hoping to maybe rendezvous with them soon.
Yeah. How far up the river are you guys going to come? Because maybe our boats we'll go down, you go up, and we'll be together.
Maybe so.
And
But yeah, so back to the Crazy Crowd stuff is when the Florida state parks open up, we are looking forward to. They're open for day use now, but if they open up for camping again, we are looking forward to maybe getting out and doing some quick trips, possibly with the Crazy Crowds.
Yes.
They live here in Sanford, and they're one of the reasons that we came back.
yes. Yeah, they're part of what lured us to Sanford in the first place, too, actually.
No, they weren't.
Well, no, I mean, that we planned that meetup there. It's like part of, not that we were planning to turn around in Sanford, but part of what got us synced with the community was them saying, we'll host a meetup. And,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes.
They've become dear friends over the years.
And then we're like, oh, these are cool people. Okay, we got a question from John here, and we're running out of questions, so you better queue some more up if you want to have anything asked. John says, when we get up north, are we going to do the Great Lakes or going up the Trent Severn Locks to Ottawa?
Yes.
Yeah, so our goal is we're not rushing through the Great Loops. Is once we get up to, there's so many different cool side trips and routes through the Canadian locks and canals and river systems that we might spend several seasons doing all of them because they all sound amazing. And definitely the Trent Severn looks like it's absolutely incredible. Ooh, we just had a streaming error from YouTube. Okay, I think there might be a YouTube network error, so hopefully it comes back to health.
So it's health? Oh, no.
No, so 729. Okay, so maybe that's an excuse that we are going to be wrapping this up pretty quickly. I know, I think YouTube. I think it may be just a YouTube glitch anyway. So, okay.
All right.
Okay.
So yeah, that's one reason we kept the bus is so that once we get up north and we can do these adventures, because we're not going to be doing those over winter, is we can store the boat up there and then return to the bus for winters where it's nice and warm. That's why we've got the lot in Arizona. So we're planning once we get up there, we're going to be spending many seasons up there.
Yes. A quick question from George here says he's got ones are what clamps are used for our solar panel mounts, and they're Sea Dog clamps. So you can look for those on Amazon.
Get them on Amazon. I believe if you go and look at our blog post giving the tour of the solar and electrical system on the boat, there's even links to them. So,
oh my gosh, we got a super chat. I forgot all about super chat. Thank you, Spell Madam. Cheers from Pendorel, Idaho, Panhandle. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I totally forgot Super Chat was even there. I appreciate that. We actually turned off the tip jar on the blog. We just felt that there's so many people going through financial hardship right now, and we're not. We're very blessed that we have a business that is
in demand at the moment.
Still in demand. We're working way overtime trying to keep up with it. So we are choosing, instead, asking that you make contributions to someone or an organization that is more in need of us right now. So
yes. Question here is, what's the difference when sleeping from the motion on a boat compared to RVing? Well, RVing, when you're stopped, you're not a lot of motion going
unless
on.
Unless it's really windy or something's really wrong. But yeah, the motion on a boat when you're at a dock that's calm, like we are in this marina, it's very gentle. And sometimes I wish there was more, because that's one thing I love about the boat is the gentle motion all the time.
Okay. Any other question? Which
well,
one?
We haven't finished the question.
Oh, okay, about the motions? Okay.
Yeah, but if it's, so our sleeping cabin is way up in the front in the V-berth. If we are at anchor and it is pretty rough, like we were anchored out in the lake here a couple weeks ago, and we had like 24 hours of winds that were higher than we were anticipating. And, the boat goes into the wind. And there was a couple times during the middle of the night where we got up and it's like, okay, can't handle that motion.
Didn't you want to sleep in the living room for a little while?
Yeah, I ended up sleeping in the living room for a little bit just to wait out the worst of it, because it was swinging quite a bit and choppy and
not dangerous, not uncomfortable in any fashion. It was annoying to sleep with the noise up there. So
yeah, because you hear the chain, the anchor, you hear the bridle pulling on the it's just.
But overall, I really like the motion of the boat makes me just so relaxed. That gentle rocking is wonderful. I kind of wish the RV had more gentle rocking motions. It's too still sometimes. Now, the important question here is, which house is Kiki's favorite?
She says the one that has her food in it. I think it would be her answer. She actually really thrives in all of them.
Even the van?
She tends to just go with the flow on them. I think she prefers RVing more to boating, just because she can step right off of one of the RVs into a nice campground or campsite and chase things and see things. Whereas on the boat, we have to take her on shore at a dock.
So we have a question here about the boat. Does our boat have bow thrusters? If not, how difficult is it to operate without it? So yes, we have a bow thruster. So this wasn't standard on Bayliner 4106. But it's not 4106.
4788.
God, what am I thinking? I'm like bus. My brain is. They both start with 4.
They both start with B.
I know. Yes. Yeah. So it wasn't standard, but the prior owner had put a bow thruster, and that was one of the things that was high up our want to have list when we were shopping. It wasn't mandatory, but
especially since we had zero experiences with boats like this. We do have dual engines, which you can steer the boat with pretty well, and a lot of people go without.
Yeah. But it is really nice to have. Appreciate it. It does make docking a lot easier. Sometimes just to practice, I try to dock with pretending there is no bow thruster. But it takes a bit longer and more effort, and it's definitely nice to have. So there we go. Somebody else, Eric, said he used Sea Dog links, bought from our Amazon links. So thank you on that. The Sea Dog clamps are great. How did we find our boat? We got a whole interview with Curtis Stokes about finding our boat.
So go back and look at the beginning. These would have been shared in springtime of 2017. We have a video series and a blog series on finding our boat. But we went with a broker. We used Curtis Stokes. He's out of Fort Lauderdale, and he has
associates
all up and down the coast. So when we were still on our bus, we started up in Rhode Island, met up with his agents as we worked our way down to Florida, looked at boats, learned about boats, and really triangulated on what we wanted. And then when there were boats that we were interested in that were too far for us to just go and look at, he would go and preview them for us when he was in the area and send us a boatload of photos and stuff and tell us, yeah, this one's worth looking at, this one's not.
Yeah, he does a wonderful job as a buyer's broker. Highly recommended. And if you're just researching boats, he does the Curtis Stokes channel on YouTube is just nonstop video tours of boats that are listed with them for sale. But even if you're not looking at boats, even if these are boats that are already sold, there's some of the most thorough, in-depth tours of boats. So go watch. We used to binge the Curtis Stokes channel, just touring boats that way.
But I would also pay attention on Yacht World for boats to come up, because sometimes something might spark my interest that he might not have seen that would, or associate with something we might be interested in. So I would shoot him links every so often, say, hey, what do you think of this one? What do you think of that one? And he was amazing to work with, and his team was amazing. I love them. They're almost, you always, are fearful of the pressure. No pressure. There's almost not enough pressure with him, if anything.
We got a question. Do we have a Travado or a Revel? We went with a Travado, and we absolutely love the Travado design.
With the 59G model, so it's got the rear corner bed.
Yes, love that layout. Day Trader wants to know what we think of houseboats. We're actually surrounded by them at this marina. They're appropriate for a certain style, like for river cruising, partying on the river. They're great for that, but they're not seaworthy enough for the kind of cruising we really wanted to do. So they weren't really even a consideration for us.
So again, the Great Loop has some open water passages, some large water that you have to. We know people who consider doing the Great Loop on a houseboat, but you really, really have to watch your weather windows closely, because they can't really handle much water. I mean, motion and weather and stuff like that.
So here's an interesting question from Ron: do we wish we had gone with an aft cabin boat? And that's the kind of design we thought for sure we wanted. We started with that, and that's where there's a main cabin down below with a sun deck above it, maybe kind of a little guest cabin up front and the living room in between. And there's some really nice designs like that. But it was one of the Curtis Stokes brokers took us like, maybe you should check out a pilot house design. And then when we saw them and fell in love with the pilot house concept, and in particular the 41, the layout here,
definitely was, because we like to have guests on board. My mom cruises with us when it's not a pandemic, and I really would have preferred a split floor plan where we would have the aft and we would have our guest in the front, and we would have a living space in between us for more privacy and separation. And that was a trade-off with going with the Bayliner 4788, but we fell in love with this salon with the big open windows, and this is where we spend the majority of our time, and we don't spend the majority of our time with a guest on board. So it is a trade-off. We're less comfortable having guests long-term than we might in a different configuration, but honestly, I'm such a homebody, and I only have limited tolerance for people on board anyway. I don't think that would have really upped our tolerance anyway.
Eric saying that they really appreciate us suggesting Curtis Stokes, and that the brokers there worked really well for them. Nice. Gypsy wants to know if you had any trouble with seasickness.
So I am prone to motion sickness and seasickness, and one reason
and bus sickness and car sickness.
Yes. One of the reasons I have really no interest in big open water cruising is because of that, and so that's why we've chosen the Great Loop. It is mostly protected waterways, and we have gone through some choppy water. I find that what works best is I drive. Yeah,
if she's driving, she won't get sick.
If I feel in control, I don't get sick.
And our boat is big enough to be fairly stable. Does not have stabilizers, but and then we just plan our weather windows. We're not going to try and go through uncomfortable, rough conditions, and so I don't think we've had really much experiences of seasickness for you at all.
Right. So I have had zero issues with seasickness on the boat. We've been in some marinas that have been really rough, and
at the dock you might get it more often.
I've really adapted. It has not been an issue at all, and every time that I've approached any sort of my motion sickness, I used to get plane sick, so I went and learned how to fly a plane. I don't have a license, but I learned how to fly a plane. That helped a lot. To get car sick all the time, well, guess what? I learned how to drive. That has helped me. Understanding the motion so my brain can process it is what has been my solution.
Yep. We have a question: had we had any opportunity to go through locks yet? We have done one of the locks on the cross Florida route from.
We did it for practice, and then we had to do a pump out up in Hilton Head
at the Windmill Harbor Marina, which the marina is behind a lock, so we got
tiny
lock. So we got to experience a big Corps of Engineer lock twice, up and down.
Yeah, but that one lifted us like 8 inches.
And so it was also a small lift at the other lock. So we haven't had tons of lock experience yet, but we're looking forward to it. I think locks are some of the coolest engineering from ancient times. And yeah, so canal boat travel in Europe, that is something that is on the long-term dream bucket list. Again, that's more excited about canal boat travel than I would be about sailing across an ocean. So yeah, maybe someday we will do a Europe trip and rent a canal boat.
Right.
Or
There's so
something.
many adventures out there. Not enough time.
Yeah, and the route that you can go from the Black Sea to the North Sea and all that. So there's some incredible routes, and there's some incredible travel blogs that have gone through them.
Oh, and speaking of seasickness, my mother reminds us Kiki has gotten seasickness at
Yes.
yes, yes. My mom came over, and we had to fly away to go visit his parents, and she came over to the boat and stayed on board and babysat, or Kiki sat, and I woke up in the morning and saw that there was a tropical storm that had just popped up right offshore.
Yeah, this little sudden one.
And so she got to ride out Why Not's first tropical storm with Kiki on board, and Kiki got sick
at dock.
At dock.
And your mom, she got off the boat and couldn't get back on because the wind had blown it away. She had to get help from the neighbors. It was like, yes, she had more adventures in the beginning than we did. Milo wants to know our opinion of convertible style boats, and I don't think we have any real experience with them at all. That wasn't a style that really appealed to us in our research.
But if it's something that's of interest to you, go spend time on one. See how it works for you. What I think of them shouldn't matter in your opinion, in your pursuit of them.
And there's and particularly even in styles of boats, there's so much variation in a given style. Each boat manufacturer does such a different take on things that, like the first pilot house boats we looked at online, we didn't think would appeal to us until we saw this particular layout, and we're like, oh, that's much better for us.
Look at a wide variety. Look at things outside. What you think is right, because what we ended up with is completely different than what we thought we wanted. Yes.
Our horizons expanded quite a bit while we were researching. Jody asks, can you do the loop in a boat taller than 15.5? Absolutely, because the minimum is 19.6, the maximum.
Right. So we went with 15 because if we do the historic Erie Canal, there are fixed bridges at 15.5. So that's why we went with something that can get below that.
That's a very seldom side trip that we're hoping to do someday because it's supposed to be really pretty, really neat.
But if you do the traditional route loop, your deciding factor is getting out of Chicago.
And that bridge, there's a fixed bridge in Chicago that's 19.5 feet. It varies a little bit based on how they're adjusting the water levels and stuff. But that is the challenge, that every loop boat has to get under that. There's no alternate route around that. Most other routes, there's other ways to go. One of the other ones we wanted to make sure we could do was going into Lake Champlain, and that's a 17.5 foot bridge to get to Lake Champlain. So you've got a lot of different routes, and each of them have their own limits. And I think we've covered some of them in one of our original posts on that. There we are.
And Kenneth Zelensky says good vibes. So hello over there on C.Ken.
Nice. Where is he?
Right there. Good vibes.
Oh, hey, there we are. Nice.
One of our dock neighbors here.
Nice. And Gary asked about motor cats. Motor cats are actually a very practical design.
They take all the benefits of a sailing catamaran and all the benefits of a power boat. They're very efficient. Some of them are very wide, so you do have extra docking issues. We've gotten aboard some with fellow loopers. They're a looping boat that does work really well.
Yeah, they're great all around design. Most of the power cats that would have had enough of the amenities we wanted were more money than we would want to spend. They're still on the pricier side.
And they're so wide that you have
some docking issues.
Yeah, there's less places. Like here, it'd be no problem, but you can't fit in a standard size slip. So you're looking for special sorts of marinas that have accommodations for them with limited spaces. And we just decided that wasn't. It was not within our realm.
There would have been some really interesting power cats if we doubled our budget.
And we had already doubled our budget.
We'd already doubled our budget to stretch to this one, so we didn't want to stretch that far. And we settled on a boat that met our comfort level, and that we were able to pay off in just a couple of years. So that was one of our goals is not have to go into long-term debt. So
hello from Stinkpot.
Nay. David on Stinkpot has been doing some really cool streaming concerts. So if anybody's looking for some great live music, check him out.
A musician who finished the loop and is on their way back to their home port in Maine.
Mhm.
We got to cross paths very briefly in Jacksonville.
Wave.
Got to wave across from a dock. I wish we had time to stop in
Yes.
person and get to know them, because it's awesome to meet other younger loopers who are doing this. It's awesome.
Okay.
Well, looks like we have wrapped up the questions.
And now we haven't wrapped up the wine yet. This is something to drink slowly and savor. This is
Absolutely.
really good.
So yeah, thanks for joining us. Hang out on a Sunday evening. We have some more content to create. Like, we need to finish up a post on the lithium batteries and the ultimate demise of them in the bus from the original set we had. That is content that is filmed. Someone has to sit down and write, and someone is far behind on his work writing.
Yeah.
So,
and it's just, I don't know. It's the world is kind of crazy right now.
Yeah, it's hard to know what sort of content to create right now. I felt kind of bad about putting out something about spending money and traveling right now, but maybe people are researching and planning for the future. So it's hard to know what content to create right now. There's no travel content. We're not traveling, so there's not much to film for travel content.
We maybe do a big travel video about our daily walk down the seawall or something.
Yeah, or maybe one of our anchoring out trips. But there's nothing really to share right now. That's beyond Instagram daily stuff.
Yeah, we are. It has been nice. We've been going out just about every week for 3 or 4 nights. But we're like when we cross the lake here, we're going out 2 miles just to change the scenery up and get some time with more boat motion away from the dock. So yeah, we're not doing. We're not doing extended travel right now.
Yep. So there's topics you want us to tackle. Maybe we can just sit down and talk about stuff. We'll probably continue doing these lives because they're easy and don't take a lot of time away from our work life. But yeah, that's what we love about Technomadia. I mean, other than Technomadia, for 13 years, it's been our personal sharing.
Yeah, it's changed
we've never really monetized it, other than the little pennies we get off videos here on YouTube. This is just fun and sharing, and we enjoy it, and mostly we enjoy the opportunity to get to meet you guys. So that's why we do it.
And yes, there are lots of people planning and scheming in the future, so definitely keep that up. The travel will be possible again someday.
And I really think that boating and RVing travel are going to become more popular in the years ahead, especially as COVID-19 remains a threat out there. It's a safer way to travel without motels and public transport.
Yeah, you're traveling in your own bubble that you control, and I think that's going to be an even more appealing thing in the future for people, is having that sort of control over your house. It's
all right, guys.
Okay, final.
Thanks for joining us for 13 years of following along. We've loved the journey, and it'll continue. Have a great evening, and happy Mother's Day again.
Ding, ding. Okay, that's and the outro loop.